All right, well, welcome to Module 5 of the Paraeducator Training Course. In this module, we're going to talk a lot about workplace soft skills and effective listening. Great skills to have on the job and off. Let's talk about the objectives that we want to meet for this module. First, we'll go through Module 5's vocabulary. Got a bevy of vocabulary terms this time through. And then we will look at 10 essential employment workplace soft skills. You guys are going to do a bit of research. We'll talk about active listening. And I will present the child developmental level assignment. If you look on Canvas in the week 5 module, it should already be there and available for you. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to do some ESSA test prep. Okay, let's start right in with this week's vocabulary. First one is FAPE, free and appropriate education. We'll hear this a number of times in the upcoming modules. Over on the right-hand side, Common Core state standards. I bet you have heard of this before, especially if you teach in one of the 48 states that have adopted Common Core state standards. Yeah, you could Google that later and find out which 2 states haven't. They're mainland states, by the way. Talent Ed, the software suite, we'll talk about that. And we will come to know the difference between classified and certificated staff. Okay, FAPE, free and appropriate education, has come to us thanks to IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Good change in society is rarely easy, and people rarely want to pay for it out of the goodness of their hearts. That's the human condition. So sometimes we have to enact laws to make things fair for people. Part B of IDEA, this is a later addition, requires participating states to ensure a free, appropriate education be made available to eligible children with disabilities. Okay, which kids are covered under FAPE? Those who are in mandated age ranges with disabilities residing within the state. Common Core state standards. Folks, when I was in graduate school, this was just coming out. CCSS was drafted, come up with by experts and teachers from across the country, and they are designed to ensure students are prepared for today's entry-level careers or freshman-level college courses or workforce training programs. Common Core focuses on developing the critical thinking, problem solving, and analytical skills students will need to be successful. Okay, so that's the commercial for Common Core state standards. CCSS is what we got when we replaced NCLB, No Child Left Behind. Criticisms of NCLB included the idea that teachers had to teach to tests rather than teach their students' readiness. So CCSS focuses more heavily on readiness. All right, Talent Ed. Folks, just a heck of a lot of school campuses in California use Talent Ed. It's a suite of software, as I mentioned before. It's used for storing records, for doing different administrative tasks. Talent Ed is meant to improve observation, supervision, and evaluation processes with a solution that adapts to individual school, board, and district needs. Okay. It's a bit of a commercial for Talent Ed there. It aligns with state, local, or provincial requirements if you're in Canada. It facilitates collaboration between teachers, principals, and staff. So if you have students in your class, and you ought to have students who have IEPs, that information will be stored in Talent Ed. All right. The Fair Labor Standards Act gives us these two classifications, classified and unclassified. Classified workers are paid hourly, usually, with the FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, setting standards on the minimum hourly wage and the overtime rate of 1.5 times the hourly rate if the employee works more than 40 hours per week, or more than 8 hours in one day. That's important to note. Certificated employees. If you are a certificated employee of a school district, you've got to have a teaching, counseling, or nursing certificate, as the name implies. Classified employees do not. Okay. Now we're talking about a set of essential workplace skills, including everything in the list on the left. We're going to get to know a number of these skills better in this module. Starting with communication. Today's workers must be able to communicate clearly and efficiently across many platforms, and to listen and take feedback or instruction effectively. Okay, so when we say many platforms, it's sort of another way of saying many media sometimes, because you might need to answer phone calls from your classroom teacher, emails, texts, simple message or other messaging services. You can send messages through Canvas, through Talent Ed, lots of different things. And so we may, as paras, we may be called upon to communicate in any of those contexts. All right, teamwork makes the dream work. Teamwork is the ability to work collaboratively with others to achieve better end results than would be possible from any individual member, but also to fulfill specific roles as needed and to mitigate conflict. All right, in this context, mitigate means minimize, to try to minimize conflict through cooperation. All right, critical thinking. Now, we often think of the word critical as being negative, like you're being critical of me, this kind of thing. But critical thinking is simply about questioning something that is established. So there may be a situation that you get into that you've never been in before, and you have to think on your feet, like we say, to navigate your way through that situation. Rapidly changing industries require employees who are able to analyze problems and make decisions in response to any challenge that may arise in the workplace. Critical thinking skills are crucial to being able to adapt to new and unforeseen needs in an industry. Our industry, of course, is teaching, but this applies across the board. This is a highly valued skill by employers. As is adaptability. Workers who have a positive attitude toward change, as opposed to fighting against it, may find it easier to stay ahead of industry trends and challenges. So, if you're working in an institutional setting, i.e. a school, there will be changes every year, sometimes every semester, every month, that come from the administration, and you may or may not be a fan of these changes. Computer technology changes, different policies change. Your students may change. You may be assigned to a completely different set of students at some point. So we have to be adaptable and resilient, able to cope with these things. Agility would be another way to put this. All right, initiative. The first part of this word, I-N-I-T, means first, right? Like the word initial. With the pace of today's workplace, many employers appreciate highly motivated workers who proactively look for ways to improve processes, products, and services. Okay, example for us in the classroom, We've got, well, look at my bookshelf back here. It could stand a little bit of organization, sure. Especially, it's just me using it, so it's not entirely necessary. But if we had a lot of students needing to access it all the time, well, hey, we'd have to reorganize it, wouldn't we? And a paraeducator who would proactively say, I need to reorganize this, make sure it's okay with the teacher, and then do so without being asked, is one that has a lot of initiative. There's no way kids could reach the books on the top shelf. This would have to be completely reorganized. Reliability. Can you come to work on time? Will you come to work? These are things we don't usually ask in an interview, but it's something that you find out quickly about a person that you're working with. So-and-so is always late, or so-and-so is never late. One of these things is valued. You know, California is considered a laid-back place by many people's standards, but we do things on time. So it's an expectation that we have of people. Reliability can involve everything from showing up on time and not missing work or deadlines, to the ability to work independently and turn in quality work consistently. All right, how about some ongoing learning and development? In some ways, this refers to the in-service or on-the-job training that I keep talking about, because districts recognize that it's important to stay ahead of the curve by demonstrating willingness and eagerness to learn more about the company and industry trends, or the agency and industry trends, I should have said, new positions and additional skill sets. So in a school setting, it's usually called PD, professional development, and it's something that's encouraged by just about every agency I've ever been connected with. And yeah, it's something that you will have the opportunity to do as a para. Leadership. All right, so we have seen on EdJoin that when you are initially hired as a paraeducator, you're probably going to be in a classification ending in the number 1, something like that. Later, as you gain experience and knowledge, you may move into one that has the number 2 or 3 or 4 after it. So in addition to acting as internal role models, employees should establish themselves as leaders who can be trusted to champion important tasks and projects. All right, so in our context, this would be referring to a more seasoned or more experienced paraeducator mentoring a less experienced paraeducator. Are you an organized person? One look at my bookshelf shows you you may be more organized than I am. Proper time and resource management, knowledge of internal project management systems, and even the tidiness of one's workspace can all be indicators of an employee's organization skills. It's not always a strong correspondence between how neat your desk is and how neat your living room is. A lot of people, myself included, keep their workspace much more organized and tidy than they keep their home. But employers usually see this as connected. So if we keep ourselves tidy at work, it's sort of assumed that we keep ourselves tidy at home, and the opposite is true as well. Organization. Do you like technology? If not, you're probably not enjoying this course. As far as tech goes, we want to develop and exhibit a deeper understanding of ways in which new technologies may be able to help improve performance, efficiency, and communication. To go back to what I was saying, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was not looking forward to teaching online or having meetings online or really doing anything online, even though I'm a tech guy, tech-oriented person. And As the days and months went on and I was continually teaching in this medium and interacting with others in this medium, my boss, my coworkers, everybody, I grew to like it quite a bit. And, I'd like to say I was the first person in my department to suggest we do things on Zoom, but I wasn't. I'm not always an early adopter, but all of us kind of were dragged into this situation together, and we all had to adapt to using new technologies together. So, the question becomes, how quickly can we do that? Are we an early adopter, like I was not with Zoom, or are we a slow adopter? All right, folks, we have on Canvas an assignment entitled 10 Essential Workplace Skills. This should be in the Week 5 module. You folks are going to read this very short article, it's about 2 pages, on Canvas, and discuss which skill would be the most important in working as an instructional assistant paraeducator. How would you learn how to become proficient in these skills is the question that we're asking ourselves. All right, folks, the next topic we will broach, communication. Yay, communication is great. Why is it important? I think you all would agree with me that it's important, but let's talk about why. Communication is the ability to share information with people and to understand what information and feelings are being conveyed by others. The understanding part here is super important, and I think I mentioned that in the last module. Communication can take on many forms, including gestures, facial expressions, signs, vocalizations, including pitch and tone, in addition to spoken and written communication. We communicate so many ways without ever picking up a piece of technology. Teachers, students, and parents frequently use non-verbal methods to communicate. Students often show disinterest in school by avoiding eye contact or sitting back in their chairs with their arms folded across their chests during instruction. I bet you've seen something like this before. Staff members may indicate that they have time to talk, but they may show disinterest by grading papers or busying themselves while you are trying to talk. I think a lot of us can relate with that too. On the other hand, a smiling, nodding face indicates that the listener is interested in what we are saying and encourages us to continue. Communication includes a broad range of actions which help the para work more effectively with students and with teachers. Okay, so smiling, nodding face, listener is interested, encourages us to continue. In many cultures, we have a name for this. In English, we don't. We just call it paying attention to the speaker. Paras interact with many different stakeholders daily. Success depends on their ability to communicate well. What's this skill needed for understanding roles and assignments? We always come back to our roles as being very important. It's important for planning and carrying out learning activities. Communication between us and the classroom teacher has to be great for that to work out. It's important for coordinating approaches with students. How are we going to work with student X, student Y, or student Z? As well as for providing information to teachers on student progress and behaviors. Also, it's good for building a positive relationship with students, teachers, and other staff. This is the cornerstone of our success as paras, I would say, or as educators in general. Paras should work to establish good rapport, good relationship, and regular communication with the supervising teacher and students. This rapport and communication is especially important when difficulties arise. When we need to engage that critical thinking, it's going to take communication to let others know what we're planning to do. Paras and teachers have to make a team that creates the learning environment together, co-creation. Setting aside a daily time to meet to discuss lessons, student needs, and challenges. contributes meaningfully to this. It's great if we have time to meet daily. We often don't, but at a bare minimum, I think weekly would be good. Meeting to talk regularly highlights two areas of teacher-para communication. The first is that paras and teachers can learn about each other's talents and interests and plan ways to benefit from these. Aha, you're very good at math, or you're very good with words. The second is that paras and teachers can come to an understanding where their differences in culture, ethnicity, experiences, etc. are concerned. Everyone has a different lived experience, even someone as young as our students, right? And so it takes an amount of communication in order to appreciate and understand that. The para and the teacher need to work together to establish and build upon trust. In the case of special education, the teacher, the para, and the supervising SPED teacher need to all participate in this. As the implementers of educational plans, the paraeducators are responsible for carrying out instruction and observing student successes and challenges and communicating these to teachers. So we can see how communication is super important right here. All right, that is the end of this module's first lecture. Thanks for joining me.